Hey everybody, this is the fourth here, and in this video I'm going to give you a better idea of how you should select your reference track if you want to do reference mixing. I've talked about reference mixing a good amount in a few of the previous videos in this tutorial series. And that's because it really is something that I recommend beginners do to start off and just get familiar with mixing and get familiar with their monitors and how things should sound and all of that. So in this video, I will be talking a little bit more about how you should go about selecting a reference track. So the first thing that you really want to look for when you're choosing a reference track is whether it has similar sounds to the track that you're going to be mixing. So if you're mixing a track that has a nice subby kick, you would probably want your reference track to have a nice subby kick as well. Or if the track you're mixing has a really punchy snare, you should choose a reference track with a really punchy snare rather than a really crisp, sharp snare, or even a clap or snap instead of a snare. And usually if you do this, it's going to mean that the reference track is going to be the same genre as the song that you're mixing. And if the song you're mixing is kind of following the trends of that genre, then you're going to have a really easy time finding a good reference track. And you do just want to look for a reference track that sounds as similar in terms of the various sounds to your track as possible. So for this song here, this is really a quite old song of mine, but it's a good example for what I'm talking about. You can hear that the sounds and the composition are all along the same lines as Southern hip-hop and rap, especially the club hip-hop and rap that was coming out a good while ago. A bunch of stuff from Lil Jon, P.D. Pablo, and all that. So some good reference tracks for this song here would be Snap Your Fingers by Lil Jon,
Let's go! Snap your fingers, but do you still? You can do it all by yourself. Let me see you do it. Let me see you do it. Hey.
Yeah by Usher,
Let's go! In the club with my homies, trying to get a little VI, keep it down on the low key.
but what I would say is the best reference track to use for this song is Cyclone by Baby Bash.
She moves her body like a cyclone, and she makes me wanna do it all night long. Going hard when they turn the spotlights on, because she moves her body like a cyclone.
And that's because if you listen to this track, it has quite a high-pitched saw lead, and Cyclone has a really high-pitched saw lead as well. And they both have a whistle in them, and they both have a pizzicato sound and 808s and all that. So I really would use Cyclone by Baby Bash as a reference track for this song. So if you listen to that track and you listen to this track here, you can tell that they are very similar in terms of the different sounds. And that's really what you want. And a lot of the times you may not be able to get quite as close of an example as a reference track, especially if you're trying to be a little bit more experimental or creative or whatever. And in those cases, just do the best you can and get the most important sounds as close as possible. And the next thing you want to look for when you're trying to find a good reference track is how good those songs sound to you. You really don't want to just pick any song in that genre that has similar sounds. You also want to make sure that the mix of that song sounds really good to you. Because if you really pay attention to different mixes by different artists, you'll probably find that you don't really like certain mixes nearly as much as you like other mixes. And if you're using a reference track that you really don't care for the mix on, then even if you do a really good job reference mixing your track to that track, you're not going to like the outcome of your mixed track as much because you just don't like the mix of the reference track. So you really do want to make sure that the mix of whatever reference track you decide to use does sound quite good to you. And because the sound quality of your reference track is really important when you're trying to do reference mixing, you should probably buy that song on iTunes or Beatport or some good retailer that you know that the quality you're going to get is good. Because if you download a free version, you never really know exactly what you're getting. The free download might be ripped from a radio show, or it might have been processed a little bit, or it might have been converted to a lower quality, or anything like that. And you especially don't want to do anything like YouTube to MP3, because the overall levels of the song might be reduced because whoever edited the video didn't have the level up as much, or it might be distorted because they wanted to have the level even louder, or anything like that. And also using YouTube to MP3 will probably get you a lower bitrate audio file than you should have if you want to do reference mixing. So if you really want to do reference mixing, it's definitely worth like the $1 or the couple dollars you'll spend on a track, just to make sure that what you're referencing is the best quality possible. So that's pretty much it as far as what you want to look for in a reference track goes. You just want to make sure it sounds as similar to your track as possible in terms of the individual sounds. You want to make sure that you like the mix of that reference track, and you want to make sure that the quality of the audio file you're using to reference is good as well. And in the next video, I'll be taking a look at how exactly you can use that reference track to help you during the mixing process to get the best sound possible.